Welcome to Session 2 of Reclamation, a series specifically created for survivors of sexual assault and abuse. And in this class today, I invite you to utilize this opportunity, this moment, to take up lots of space. I know that sometimes it can feel that we need to make ourselves small in order to protect ourselves, and it is completely understandable and a very valid coping skill. However, it can be helpful in a held, protected container, such as this class, this next 60 minutes, to give ourselves permission to start to take up space with our bodies, so making large sweeping gestures or maybe just big, bold movements that we wouldn't normally make, as well as internally taking up space, allowing our emotions, our heart, our healing, and what we need in this moment to really come into the driver's seat and take exactly what we need in this moment, exactly what we want. And so, as always, everything in this class is an invitation, and I honor your choice to choose for yourself what you need, what you want, and decline and say no to anything you don't want. And your choice is always honored here. So with that being said, I welcome you to find a shape of choice to begin our practice. I'm going to begin in child's pose, and you might decide to join me. And here, if you do choose to find a child's pose, I like to have a blanket underneath me, just some cushion for my knees, and you might even enjoy having a second blanket to wrap over you, as we've done in many classes before. And here, as we come into a child's pose, option to take the knees maybe as wide as the mat if you want a little bit more room for your body. So again, taking up space. And it doesn't just have to be outward, it can be inward as well. And so even if the shape that you choose for yourself isn't grand in gesture, it can be an inner decision to allow yourself this moment to explore what's on your heart or simply the sensations in your body. Maybe that is you taking up space in this moment. So it doesn't have to be a big outward expression. Sometimes it's a big inward expression. And here in our child's pose, as we set up, if you choose to take this shape, you could explore taking the knees as wide as the mat and the toes to touch back behind you. It might feel uncomfortable to have the toes overlapping. It might not, but if it does feel uncomfortable, you might start to bring the toes to touch rather than overlapping. And option to utilize your blanket here, wrapping it over yourself in any way that feels welcome, in any shape that you might be in. You might also decide to take a more narrow child's pose. Perhaps the legs are more parallel to one another rather than more open. And here you might choose to bring your forehead to rest on the mat. Maybe even rocking your forehead from side to side, if that feels welcome, exploring a gentle massage. Or it might feel safer to have your gaze lifted. And if so, you could stack your fists on top of one another underneath your chin, resting your chin, keeping your gaze open. And as we begin to settle in here, whether you are in child's pose or a different shape, I invite you to take these next 4 or 5 rounds of breath to arrive. Perhaps taking a scan of your body, just noticing what's present for you. What kind of physical sensations are present for you in this moment? And if you'd like to work with an affirmation in this class, I offer you the community affirmation, which is, I will not make myself small. I deserve to take up space. I will not make myself small. I deserve to take up space. And if that resonates with you, if that's something that maybe doesn't feel 100% true, but you desire, I invite you to speak from a place of already having it. Using this hour to explore it, to try it on for size, so to speak. Knowing that in this class, you are welcome to express yourself in whatever means feels right to you. And if you would rather work with a different affirmation, you are welcome to do that as well. And so if you are ready to begin moving into our next shape, you might start to take a breath in and lift the head to look at the hands. If you have your hands making fists that were underneath your chin, you might start to walk the hands out as we begin to walk the hands over to one side. And so the bottom half of the body can stay in whatever shape you've chosen, and the hands and the torso are doing the movement here. And you choose how far you want to explore this side stretch, if at all. Knowing that you are not confined to your mat. If your hands and your arms find their way outside of the bounds of your mat, that is more than welcome. And here you might decide to keep your gaze lifted, looking at your hands, or perhaps releasing the forehead to the mat. As we explore 3 rounds of breath here, you might even notice the expansion on your inhales happening in the left side of your body. You might even send a conscious breath into the left side of your body. Last breath here. And you can choose to stay here longer, or if you're ready to lift the head and look at the hands, you might begin to walk your hands back to center. Just pausing at center for one breath, noticing in this very short moment the difference between the left and right side. And then if you're ready to take the next side, you could lift your gaze again and begin walking your hands over to the left. And again, you control how much you come into this shape. And so if you want less of a sensation, less of a stretch, maybe that's what your body's asking for today, then you could avoid walking the hands out so far and instead maybe just take a slight movement out to the left or none at all. And we'll take 2 more rounds of breath here. observing, feeling what's going on in the right side of my body. What am I experiencing here? Starting to find completion. If you're ready to, and beginning to walk the hands back to center. And taking a moment at center to just feel and observe. What did it feel like to allow yourself to move off of the mat? To rather being confined to this rectangle, giving yourself permission to expand beyond it. And with your next breath in, if you're ready to begin moving, you might shift yourself forward into a tabletop. And you can keep the blanket here, or you can remove it. It really is up to you. There's no right or wrong. But I'm going to remove it just so that you can see what I'm doing. And so here in our tabletop shape, your knees might find their way underneath your hips. And I invite you to make a choice here. If you would like to explore a cat-cow, perhaps staying here in a tabletop as we inhale, allow the spine to droop down towards the floor, and allow the exhale to pull the spine up towards the sky. This is option 1. Option 2 is to work within a rocking fluid motion. And so coming into a version of child's pose, keeping the legs in a parallel shape, thereabouts. You could exhale and draw your spine forward, rounding it. And inhale, shift your hips back toward your heels. Exhale when you are ready to, finding your way back up. Inhale to allow the spine to naturally curve back, perhaps keeping the chest a little open and lifted. So wherever you're at, whatever you decide, I invite you to explore this for 2 to 3 rounds of breath. You deserve to take up space. Your body, your voice, your healing, your needs, all of you. Starting to find completion here. I'll meet you in a tabletop. Whenever you get there, taking just a moment to feel what you feel. And with your next inhale, you might begin to extend your right leg out. You can stay where you are, but I'm going to move just so that you can see me a little bit better. So, from tabletop, extending the right leg out and adjusting your stance as needed. So, taking a moment to feel, maybe even rocking back and rocking forward, noticing the toes on your right foot. If your right foot feels unstable, it might be helpful to to allow the blade of your right foot to come to your mat, allowing your toes to face forward in the same direction. And notice, how does that feel? Does this feel stable? Does this feel welcome? So whether you are in this rocking motion or whether you're in stillness, we'll take one more breath here. And then coming back to stillness, you could start to walk your hands back toward you, coming to lift off and lift the chest. And here, again, taking a moment to stabilize. So noticing, does my left knee feel stable? Do I need to adjust my stance? How can I reach my right leg out and plant my right foot in a way that feels secure? And if you have a block nearby, you might go ahead and grab it just to have it as an option. And I'm going to place it by my right knee, thereabouts. And if you don't have a block, that's okay. Okay, so after you adjust into your stance, I invite you to find some engagement in your right quad, even placing your right hand on your leg and feeling the engagement. You might even explore this by softening the muscle, allowing any engagement to just be released, and then engaging the muscle. Your right quad, feeling the difference here. And so with this engagement, if you choose to have it, because you could also choose to take a more passive, soft approach, depending on what your body needs. But you might join me in inhaling the arms up towards the sky, taking a breath in. And then as you exhale, option to bring your right hand to your right leg or to your right block, whichever one is available to you. And you might allow your left arm to extend out over, coming close to your left ear, and noticing what's present on the left side of your body. And if you feel kind of wobbly or unstable, you might explore returning back to the engagement in your right leg. Wherever you're at, you might join me for 2 more breaths here. And after your last breath, option to inhale right back up to center. And exhale, release the hands down. And we'll take it in the opposite direction. So you could plant your block on the left side of you now. Inhaling the arms up. Exhale. Coming down onto the block on your left side or fingertips to the floor. You might even sweep your right arm over towards your right ear. You are allowed to take up space. You do not have to make yourself small. Last breath. And an inhale to find your way right back up. Hands can come down to the mat. And if you're ready, you can draw your right leg back in and take one cat-cow in between if you want to, or maybe you just take organic movement. Feeling into your body, that was a big shape. One more breath of feeling and noticing. And then coming back to stillness in your tabletop, you could extend your left leg out. And taking a moment to adjust your stance and feel into your body. You might even choose to rock back and forth, noticing how it changes the sensation, changes the experience. And with your next inhale, if you're rocking and you're ready to find stillness, I'll meet you there. And here's another option for stability. If you found that your last shape was pretty wobbly, or maybe you didn't feel quite secure, another option is to tuck your toes. So tuck the right toes, as your left foot, the blade of your left foot, could really ground down into your mat. So these are options you could explore. And if you're ready to lift up, you could walk your hands back and come onto your right knee, your left foot, perhaps grabbing your block and placing it by your left knee. So adjusting what needs to be adjusted so that you feel secure, maybe exploring tucking the right toes. And then if you'd like, you could inhale and reach the arms up. Maybe as you reach the arms up, your spine follows, growing a little bit taller, taking up a little bit more space. And as you exhale, option to bring your left hand down to your block or your leg. And you might even reach your right arm over to your right ear. Breathing, feeling. Last inhale and exhale here. And with a breath in, you might start to come right back up to center. And then exhale to release your arms down. You might move your block to the right side. And we'll breathe in together. And if you're ready to come to the right side, you could start to exhale and bring your hand down to your block. Reaching your left arm over if that feels welcome. How's your breath here? How is it flowing? And we'll start to find completion, ending with our last exhale. And with your inhale, you might start to reach yourself up. And then bring our hands back down to the earth, pulling your left leg in if you're ready for it. And I'll meet you in a tabletop. And again, option here to move and feel into your body. What feels different? This is now the third time we visited a cat-cow shape or something similar. So how does it feel now? Whatever your experience is, compared to when you first started at the beginning of class. Okay, couple options here. Option one, to find a downward facing dog. So that would look like from tabletop, walking your hands forward a little bit to create some space, tucking your toes, and with a breath in, starting to bend the knees and send the hips back towards the ceiling, really elongating through your arms. And then maybe releasing one heel down at a time, kind of alternating between the two, pedaling out your feet. And if your hamstrings are feeling really tight, it might feel welcome to take your feet as wide as your mat. So here's option one. downward facing dog. Option 2 is to take a puppy pose. And so from tabletop, you would exhale, find some engagement in your core, and then allow your hands to walk forward. And as your hands walk forward, you might start to lower your forehead towards the mat. And if your spine, especially your lower back, feels tension here, notice if you've maybe softened your core, and if so, can you return back to engagement to support your lower back? So that's option 2. Option 3 is to find a child's pose. So whatever you choose, wherever you decide to be, I invite you to be all there. And also, a gentle reminder that you can change your mind. So if you decide to explore one shape, and then halfway through your body says, actually, I'd like to be in a different shape, you can change your mind. 2 more rounds of breath wherever you are. Last one. And if you are in puppy pose or child's pose, you might start to make your way into a tabletop. And if you're in down dog, you could do the same. Starting to find your way forward into a forward fold. And so you could take your right foot or your left, whichever one feels most accessible, step it forward, and then step your left foot forward, coming into a forward fold. Or if you're like, no, that's not gonna happen for me right now, that's okay. You could come to a kneeling position, step one foot forward, and then the other. And then find your way down into a forward fold. And if there's a third way you prefer, you can use that too. It really doesn't matter how you get here, or even when. Whenever you get here, I'll be here. And so when you do find your forward fold, you might explore taking a micro bend or even a deep bend into your knees. And if you find that you need a little bit more space for your body, you could take your feet as wide as the mat, rather than hip distance apart. Or if you prefer a different stance, you can find that now. And with your inhale, you might decide to come and bring your hands to your shins, lengthening through the spine, taking a halfway lift. And exhale down. You might start to release your forward fold. If you're ready to rise, you could inhale, root into your feet, bend your knees, and rise all the way up. Exhale, maybe your hands come down to heart center. I invite you to pause here. Can you feel your feet connected to the floor? Can you feel your hands touching or resting at your sides? I invite you to bring to mind the community affirmation or the affirmation you're working with. I do not need to make myself small. I deserve to take up space. I deserve to take up space. And if you're ready to continue moving, you might step one foot out very wide. And taking a moment to feel into your body, as always, feeling stable, feeling secure, and only you know what that feels like in your body. So it might not look like exactly what I'm doing, and that's okay. And here, option, rather than blading our feet like we did in the previous shape, we're actually, or I'm inviting you to turn your feet outward. So the toes are pointing out. It's kind of like this really wide V, if you will. And here, you might bring your hands to your hips, or you might simply allow them to rest on your legs, feeling the engagement of your muscles here. Taking a moment, allowing your feet to really plug into your mat. And with your next inhale, you could inhale your arms up, maybe allowing your spine to grow a little bit taller. And as you exhale, option to lower the hands and bend into your knees. This is called Goddess. And here you might take a moment to kind of rock back and forth, giving your body a moment to kind of feel into the shape, noticing what's present for you. So you could stay here in Goddess, just kind of exploring this, or if you would like to, you could inhale back up to Star. This is our Star pose. And exhale right back down into Goddess. Inhaling up into Star. Exhaling into Goddess. So lots of choices here. You could rotate back and forth, or you could stay in Goddess and explore whatever that shape is happening in your body, whatever feels good, whatever feels right. You deserve to take up space. What does it feel like to own the space around you? The next time you are in Goddess, you might decide to stay here and find some stillness. Option to bring your hands down to your quads and lean forward. So we're really stabilizing our bodies on our quads. So this is option one. You might decide to inhale at center. And as you exhale, you could send your left shoulder forward and look back over your right shoulder. Coming into a twist. And then your inhale would bring you back to center. And your exhale would drop the right shoulder forward, look over your left. And you might continue this twisting movement. Or if your body is like, oh, I'm not asking for a twist, I don't want that today, you could instead inhale the arms up in Goddess. Exhale, one forearm comes to the same side, quad, and exhale, reaching the top arm over for a lateral stretch, a side stretch. Switching sides whenever you're ready. So wherever you're at, we'll take the next 2 rounds of breath here. Choosing for yourself what feels right. And if at any time you're like, wow, we've been in Goddess for 1,000,000 years, it seems like, you don't have to stay. You can lengthen through the legs and come back into Star pose at any time. And after your second breath, or when you decide you feel complete, you could come back to center, lengthen through the legs. And bringing some awareness into your feet, you might start to heel toe your feet back together. So taking a moment to find your feet underneath you again. And coming into a standing meditation for a few rounds of breath. You might leave your hands down at your sides, or perhaps place one hand over your heart and one over your abdomen. Can you tune into your heart rate? Feeling your heart beating in your chest. No one can take that away from you. Can you tune into your breath? Experiencing your inhales and your exhales as they move fluidly through your body. Your breath is always with you. It is yours. And then can you tune into your feet connected to the floor? Feeling this rooted connection. Feeling the ground that you stand on, the space that you are standing in that is yours. Taking one last breath here. I will not make myself small. I deserve to take up space. You could choose to stay in this space even longer, or if you're ready to continue moving, you might grab one of your blocks or a bolster if you don't have a block and set it right behind you. And taking your feet a little bit wider, we'll prepare to come down into a squat, malasana. And so you could turn your toes out a little bit to create some space for your body and start to lower down, sinking the hips down, bringing them to your block or the bolster beneath you. Option here to bring your palms to heart center and maybe connect your elbows to the inside of your knees. You might start to notice your spine here, noticing if you can lengthen your spine and find some space for your heart. Can you shine your heart forward? Perhaps even sending a conscious inhale into your chest, right at the front of your heart. And one more breath. This time, a conscious inhale into the back of your heart. And if you're ready to release this shape, you could move the propping from underneath you and start to bring your hips down to the earth. And option here to sit on a bolster or a blanket. I'm going to sit on a blanket and come into any seated shape that feels supportive in your body. So you might choose to have your feet crossed. You might choose to have your legs outstretched, or maybe even the soles of your feet together. Whatever feels right to you. And as always, you can utilize a blanket to drape over yourself in any way. Maybe over your lap, maybe over your shoulders, whatever feels right. So taking a moment to set up. And here there's an opportunity to explore some safe and gentle, nourishing self-touch. And I invite you to begin by just rubbing your palms together, warming your hands. You might do this slowly, or it might even be a little bit faster. And using this moment to tune into where in your body you would like to apply some nourishing touch. Perhaps it's your feet, maybe it's your neck, maybe it's your own hands, wherever that location is. I invite you to now take your hands, if it feels safe and if it feels welcome, and begin to massage this area of your body that is asking for a little bit of TLC. You might explore massaging your neck, or maybe even loving on your feet. You might even explore more than one area. So if you start maybe with your feet and move to your own hands, whatever feels welcome. There's no right or wrong. And as you take this moment to lovingly massage your body, I welcome you to extend a few words of thanks, a few words of gratitude. Thank you, body, for carrying me through every journey I've ever been on. Thank you, body, for never failing me, never quitting on me. Thank you, body, for holding me. Spending another 2 or 3 breaths here. Starting to find completion. And taking just a few moments to settle in a little bit deeper into this moment. Just being with whatever came up for you, and I invited you to thank and express gratitude for your body. Being with whatever is without judgment. And if you'd like, you could stay in this space longer, perhaps even staying in a seated shape if this is what is preferable to you. Or if you feel safe to, you could even come onto your back as we take one last shape before our time of rest. And here, you could continue to utilize your blanket, preparing to drape it over you. I'm going to leave my blanket off of me just for a moment so that you can see what I'm doing in the next shape. And so if you chose to stay in a seated shape, I'll show you another version of this exact same shape that we're going to be doing from laying on our backs. So you can decide, would you like to lay on your back, or or stay seated. And if you're laying on your back and you'd like to join me for this next shape, you could take your feet and extend them or place them on the very edges, left and right edges of your mat. So it's a much wider stance. And you might start to send your knees over to one side of the mat. If you're in a seated shape, you could take your feet and plant them on the floor really wide, planting your hands back behind you on the floor and leaning back. And doing the same thing here, kind of windshield wipering our knees. And then the next time your knees are on the right side or left side, it really doesn't matter, but I'm going to start on the right. You could leave your knees there, taking a pause. An option to, if your knees are pointing to the right, option to take your right foot and place it over your left knee, allowing the weight of your right leg, your right foot, to just gently tug your left leg down. This stretch is very good for our psoas. Our psoas is a very deep muscle in the hip flexor muscular group. And the psoas can hold a lot when we feel scared or when we shake because of trauma or when we just have a big experience happen. This muscle, this psoas especially, can hold a lot of memories, a lot of sensations. And so I invite you to be gentle with yourself here. If this shape for any reason at any time does not feel right to you, please give yourself permission to remove yourself from this shape. No questions asked. And perhaps this shape does feel very welcome. And if so, I welcome you to be here for the next 4 rounds of breath. And if you're in the seated shape, maybe you're already there, but if not, and you're curious to see a visual, I'll show you from the seated shape as well. If you're in the seated shape, it might not feel welcome to plant your right foot over your left knee. You might just simply leave both feet on the floor and allow the stretch to happen this way. We'll start to take our last round of breath here on this side. And with your next inhale, if your right foot is on top of your left knee, you might remove it and start to draw your knees back up towards the sky, adjusting your hips as needed if they feel uneven. And then sending the hips over to the opposite side if you'd like to take that. Perhaps you leave both feet on the floor, or maybe it feels welcome to allow your bottom foot to just drape over your top knee. I welcome you to take another 4 rounds of breath here. You might even take this opportunity to breathe consciously into your hips, into the front of your hips. And that doesn't mean that you have to force your breath to be deeper or bigger. It just means that in your mind's eye, you can consciously take a natural breath into a specific part of your body. Starting to take our final breath here. And if you're ready to leave this shape, you could remove your foot from on top of your knee and allow your knees to come back up to center. If you're lying on your back, option to pull your knees in toward your chest, maybe even wrapping your arms around your knees. If you're sitting up, you could still do this. Just pull your knees in toward your chest if it feels welcome. Hugging yourself in. You might even rock from side to side. Or you might stay at stillness. You can choose to stay here as long as you want. Or if you're ready, you might start to find your way into any rest shape that feels welcome to you. So you might choose to lay on your back, perhaps even draping a blanket over you. Or you might decide to lay on your stomach or stay in a seated shape. You could even explore taking your legs up the wall, which we've done in previous classes. There is no right or wrong way to explore this time of rest. Your rest is your choice. Whatever shape allows you to feel even just 10% safer, 10% more at rest. I invite you to take that shape now. And before we move into our quiet time, I welcome you to join me for some breath awareness. Simply starting by noticing where your body is resting on your mat. What parts of your body can feel the support underneath you? Maybe even taking a scan of your body. Observing how you feel in this moment. And you might choose to stay right here, simply feeling your body connected to what's supporting you. Or you might join me in shifting your awareness to your natural breath. Becoming aware that you are breathing. It's not necessary to change how you're breathing. You don't have to force yourself to take a deeper breath or change the rate of your breathing. You can stay here with the natural flow of your inhales and exhales. If at any point your body feels the need to sigh or yawn, that's totally okay. You can let that happen. But you don't have to force the breath to change. We can just be here. You might even start to bring some awareness around your nostrils. Perhaps even feeling a temperature change as you inhale through your nose compared to when you exhale out of your nose. You might choose to stay right here, staying with your breath, watching it move in and out of your nose. Or you might start to travel your awareness down from your nose into your body, maybe your chest or your stomach. You might even notice your chest or stomach rising and falling with your breath. You might even feel movement more in one area compared to another. Maybe you notice your stomach rising and falling more than you do your chest, or vice versa. And if you'd like, you could allow your awareness to stay in the area where you feel the most movement or sensation. So perhaps it's your nose, maybe it's your chest, maybe it's your stomach. And for the next 5 to 6 rounds of breath, I invite you to just be here with your breath, allowing your awareness to rest in that area where you feel the most movement or sensation. Last breath. And if you'd like, you could spend the remainder of our rest time continuing to focus on this area of your breath. Or if you prefer to release it, you may do so at any time as we move into the quiet portion of our rest time for the next 2.5 to 3 minutes. And so even though I'm quiet, I'm still right here with you, and I'll let you know when the time is complete. This is your time of rest. You can continue to stay in this place for as long as you desire. If you are ready to move on from this time of rest, you might start to add some small movement back into your body. Perhaps tracing the fingertips along your thumbs. Maybe even stretching your fingers out and rolling through the wrists. And if you're on your back, you could eventually make your way into a side-lying shape. Taking a moment and then when you're ready, you could press yourself up, coming into any seated shape, maybe even continuing to have your blanket draped over you. An option here to bring your hands to either heart center or maybe leave them resting wherever they are. And I invite you to bring to mind the community affirmation: I will not make myself small. I deserve to take up space. If you'd like, you could join me for one collective breath, starting with the exhale out. We'll breathe in together. Thank you for practicing with me today. I hope that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. Thank you.